Our uncle called me dog face for my entire life.
Wait, called you or called your sister?
Called my sister dog face. He called me Big Mermaid. My favorite movie was The Little Mermaid, and he called me Big Mermaid, and still calls me Big Mermaid. And she's like, I love how mom's like, what trauma? I'm like,
I was telling you I had a rough week this week, Meredith. I think the world is telling me that there's only a certain amount of money I'm allowed to make. You ever feel that way? Like
100%.
There's like a cap on it, and so I had a nice run the week before I was with board teachers. I started in Rhode Island, I ended up in Orlando by Sunday, and it was like exhausting, but I knew what I was getting paid by the end of the week. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing this because I'm a teacher and I also know what they pay. And so I'm like, oh, this is great. And then last Saturday, a week later, our water just stopped working in the house. And I'm like, oh, this is great. So the only place on a Saturday was one of these like 24/7 places, which we were just driving behind this person, one of the trucks. And I'm like, I'll just call them. And so they came out to the house. I took my daughters out. My wife was there waiting. And she sent me a text with the quote the guy gave her. And it was like $6,000 to $8,000, depending on what it was going to be. And I thought at first when he sent the two, I thought I was adding those together. And I'm like, this guy's telling me it's going to be $14,000. This is insane. And I'm like, I just am not allowed to have money. I'm not allowed to have money. And long story short, we called the plumber who's always worked on our house, who actually used to have our house as their office. And what they wanted us to put in a deposit was what that company charged, soup to nuts, to do everything. And I'm just like, how dare those people? How dare that company?
I have always said if I was ever going to have a different job than what I have now, I would have been an excavator or a plumber.
I mean, they were really just going to take away like two family vacations from my daughters. They were going to take away gymnastics lessons. They were going to take away like a really nice birthday party. I just
write that in the memo of the
crazy.
Check instead of like work done to the house. You just write, it would have been Alicia's birthday.
Yeah, this would have been her. Like, how dare you? Like, if you know that that's not what it is. And thank God for stuff like ChatGPT, because I put it in. I'm like, I saw the quote and what some of the specific language was. I'm like, hey, for a Q1 pump, what should it cost to put in a house? And then it was even given is it a well? Is there a deep well? Is it this well? And it was like kicking out like $1,200 to $2,000. And I'm like, that's insane to me. Like that somebody could just do that. But hey, what am I going to do? Create the well pump myself? I might as well make internet while I'm at it. I can't do that stuff. That frustrates. And for you, I mean, obviously, my guest today is Meredith Steyer. In another life, you work with housing and realty, so like you see this because you were like, oh, you don't do that. Please call this person.
As soon as he said the number, I was like, absolutely not.
I was grateful the name you said was the name I ended up calling.
Yeah.
So like clearly I had made the right choice. But yeah, I'm so grateful for our friendship too, because like I know you know those kind of things. I think everybody needs somebody in their life that knows and has an encyclopedia of who to call for things.
Yeah, and I cannot wait until the day I'm no longer that person.
God, it's got to be frustrating.
Most of the calls that I get are like stuff like that, like, hey, my well pump just went, who do you know? Or who makes the best pizza in Pottstown? And I'm like, who actually has these answers? And that was ChatGPT, like Jay said. But yeah, sometimes it's nice to be the...
Yeah, you no longer have, now thanks to ChatGPT, you can now just live a normal life.
No, normal life.
No, isn't that crazy? That's actually why I'm excited that you're here, because I usually what happens when I have a guest on, we talk a little bit about how we met. And I remember meeting you before you met me.
That's usually the case.
So you came to the high school I was teaching at because you worked with the Education Foundation.
Yep.
And you were speaking about, I guess, a scholarship, or that we were going to be, asking us to donate or do something to the Ed Foundation. And you proceeded to roast the principals who you had because you had gone to that school. And it was so funny. And everybody was just dying because, like, it was just it was what we all needed. Those meetings in the beginning of the year are always rough. So to have some kind of comedic release, and you were just talking. That was what I think was so great about it. Like, you were just being you. You were just talking.
Because I had nothing prepared, because when I showed up for that day, I thought that it was like a meeting. I thought it was a very professional meeting. It's a pep rally.
Yeah.
It's a pep rally. And I had a 2-page document that an 80-year-old woman had written that was very professional and super boring. And there were like cheerleaders there and music. And I was like looking at this thing. I'm like, this is not me. I can't do this. And so I just started crossing things out. And I'm like, I might get in trouble for this, but if I actually want people to donate and pay attention, I'm going to have to be funny. And just happened to be, that our vice principal looked very much like Billy Joel does. And I was able to just kind of make a great joke. But yeah, that was actually the most fun. I roasted my teachers and everybody the entire time I went to the school, but it was nice to have a microphone to do it this time.
How about it? I never underestimate the power of humor. And because I think that's, you and I have similar stories in this, like, I'll call it a midlife pivot. People like to use the C word. But I will say I myself during COVID had a very hard shift and comedy became something that, comedy for me became something that saved me. And it was this pivot that I didn't see coming. If somebody told me 5 years ago, this is what I'd be doing right now, I'd be like, you're crazy. And now I can't imagine doing anything else but this.
Well, let me just first thank you for calling it a midlife pivot, because there's no fucking way I'm making it past 85. I feel like my midlife was more about 10 or 15 years ago, but it's my 2/3 life crisis or whatever you want to call it.
You're at end of the second act.
I'm at the second trimester. Yeah, I mean, this part in our life, I think this is when everybody starts to just kind of reevaluate. Things start to just switch up and you start to figure out what you need in your life. And I needed comedy for sure.
I think that, like, I always grew up thinking, like, there were markers of things you had to do. You have to go to school, then you have to go to college, then you have to get a job, then you have to have a family. And I think my life, especially the people that were in my life, my family, the way it was, I think they tried to fit that mold, and then clearly it was like, this isn't going to work. And it was like putting the Hulk in like a size 2 outfit, it's like not going to work. And I think that helped me realize, oh, okay, like, and I saw even my own family try to force themselves to still be in that mold when it clearly didn't fit, like, the person who wears that outfit that they should not be wearing right now. And I didn't want that for myself, but you still kind of feel obligated to do it, I don't know. And so for me, it was just COVID was something that I needed to kind of force me outside my comfort zone to try something different. Something else had to be. There had to be a different chapter I could write. And I'm so grateful because, like, now I don't know where the possibilities are, but I'm so excited for how different my life is than I thought it was going to be. Oh, I'm going to coach, I'm going to teach, I'm going to have kids, and I'm going to die. And
I think that is most people. My entire life was opposite. I thought I was going to be famous. Literally, for what? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But if you would have asked me when I was 8 years old what I wanted to be when I grew up, I wanted to be famous. And I was just really loud, and I didn't really have a path. I was just obnoxious. But I have oppositional defiance disorder immediately. So the second somebody tells me what I'm supposed to be doing, that's usually what I end up not doing. And my whole family was a very weird, like, we lived on a family commune, and everybody just kind of had a strange, it wasn't like a commune.
It wasn't like Waco. Okay.
It was a commune. Everybody, my grandparents bought a property, subdivided land off for every kid. They all built houses. We all worked at the family restaurant, all worked in family businesses. So, but there was the expectation that you get married and you have kids. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go to college, and then I'm going to run a business, and then I'm going to get married. I'm never going to have kids. I'm going to have skin kids, or fur babies instead of skin kids. I call them skin kids. They're just not. It's not my speed. I super love other people's children. Never wanted any. But yeah, this point in my life, I think my pivot was just, I had so many things that I haven't been able to say. I've been in the restaurant business most of my life. I've been in real estate for the second half of my career life, and a lot of that is people pleasing. A lot of that is telling people what they need to hear, or what they want to hear, not what they need to hear, not what you want to say. And so finally I had comedy, and I was like, this is what I needed. This is a release. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's funny too, because you and I both talk about very personal stuff on stage. You may be a little bit more personal than I, but I find too, like even in some of the things that I share, like there's a level of making people uncomfortable. How do you feel about that, given like the people pleasing nature in you? Like, does that? Do you get it?
It's a high.
It
is a high. I mean, the first few times I remember, so I started at Joel's, and that's Pottstown, born and raised there, went to school there, and so a lot of the comedy I'm telling is in front of people that have known me my whole life. So I think for some of them to hear me talk the way I do is shocking, and obviously I have a reputation that I'm trying to preserve because I am a wonderful professional who also happens to be really funny and mildly inappropriate, severely inappropriate. So I think initially I was, I just remember being really nervous that people were going to look at my business differently because of what I was doing on stage. But I think people appreciate the authenticity, I think, and that made me feel more comfortable. And also, I remember my favorite story is my 80-year-old cousin wanted to come to one of my shows, and I was begging her daughter not to let her come. I was like, I don't think you understand what my material is like. I do not want your mother listening to this stuff. I mean, I'm thinking family functions are going to be different after this. Please don't. And I didn't see her show up, and I just did my regular set, which was pretty racy that night. And I talked a lot about sex and some dirty stuff. And after the show, I see this cousin of mine emerge from the audience, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. And she comes up to me and gives me a hug, and she goes, I felt a lot of what you were saying.
Right.
A lot of that really resonated with me. And I was like, the black dick stuff, or what resonated with you?
Was this?
And I remember just thinking, here I thought I was going to have this like horrible, and she was thrilled to have something to laugh at, and kind of, so I love that part
the way
of the job.
we repress feeling. I mean, that's what's so great. Because I had the same apprehension when I started doing like the open mics, because I'm like, okay, I didn't grow up here, but like for 20 years now, I've been a teacher here, and that's a different like level. You're held to a certain standard, so that's what forced me to be as clean as possible at first, and then once I started kind of getting into it, then I'm like, okay, like to your point, I think the authenticity. People respect that. Like, my kids can find my stuff. I'm sure they do. I'm sure somebody's listening to this right now. And I think it's, if not anything else, they see me as a human now. It's more authentic. And I like that. I think there's something about being honest. Like I joke that I live my life in witness protection. I've said that on here before. And I'm sick. I was so sick of that. And so like having the bondage of that lifted is freeing. It's exciting.
It's funny. I really think that when we, Jay was my teacher, taught my first comedy class, only comedy class I've taken. And it's the only one I ever needed. I'm just kidding. But I just remember thinking how it was like I was very dirty. I mean, just from the jump, my jokes, I would try to start with something that wasn't dirty, and it would just end up that way. And I think it was because it was sort of just like bursting this bubble of I had to keep myself under wraps for so long in every career I did that when I was finally able to like release it went kind of crazy. And I remember being almost insulted when people would say, do you have any clean comedy? And I'm like, I've been clean every day for 30 years, like I've been saying what people wanted me to say for that long, like, let me go. And now I feel like I'm able to write jokes that aren't just shocking. Like I do want to write things that are, I do want to have more jokes that are like more universal,
well, yeah,
but it was my like, it was my form of expression.
It makes me think too, like, cause I'm like, I have 2 young daughters, and I just think like, even this morning, like I so badly don't, you can't help it, but you're going to give your kid a complex on something. And like this morning, for the love of my 8-year-old, I love this girl. Like, honestly, she's amazing. We have such a great connection at times. And then she'll wake up in the morning and it's like, hey, what do you want for breakfast? And she cannot tell me what she wants. I literally list every single thing we have in the house. And she just does not know how to make a decision. And then like now we're like 30 minutes in. We only have an hour slated from wake up till they have to get out to the bus. And it's enough time if you know what you want. Now my other daughter, Alicia, she's a creature of habit. So I know she wants 2 Eggo waffles. She wants 2 slices of bacon. Call it a day. But Katie just could not figure it out today. And then at one point, like, I'm just like, I'm like yelling at her about it. And then I'm just like, this poor girl can't make a decision. And here I am, like, making her feel bad about it. And, like, it paralyzes her. And I'm like, you know what? I've been at a situation where I've been trying to look at something. I just could not decide what I wanted. And having somebody criticize you for that definitely does not help the situation. But, like, that was my first reaction, was to just, like, roast her about it. And I'm like, that's so unhealthy. And, like, but that's what, and I say that because I think that's what happens. So then I think about it, well, I'm not the only person to do this. All parents do this. But, like, I was grateful that I could, like, reflect on it in real time. And then I just apologized to her. I'm like, I'm so sorry, baby. I said, I felt that way before. I've sat there and not been able to make a decision.
And there you have it, folks. There's a difference between parenting now and parenting 40 years ago.
Right.
My sister and I were hanging out. She lives in California. I only get to see her like once a year. And we were talking last night about how I got into comedy or why. And I was like, well, trauma. And we always joke about the fact that our family is like, what trauma? My sister was like, our uncle called me dog face for my entire life.
Wait, called you or called your sister?
Called my sister dog face. He called me Big Mermaid. My favorite movie was The Little Mermaid, and he called me Big Mermaid, and still calls me Big Mermaid. And she's like, I love how mom's like, what trauma? I'm like, no trauma, dog face.
No trauma, dog face.
So, and there are no apologies. There's denial. There's gaslighting.
Yes.
We never did that. I never called you that, but. Yeah, you parents now are like, I'm so sorry. I hurt your feelings. I understand why you're feeling the way parents 40 years ago are like, that never happened.
That never happened.
And if it did, suck it up.
That's right. That's it. Rub some dirt on it and get back out there.
Stop crying before I give you something to cry about.
Because that's all I can think about. Oh, that's that. I want to do that trend now. Have you seen? There's a trend on where people now, like parents now, will take their younger kids and they'll do the phrase. They'll be like, kids should be seen and not. And then have the kid's not hearing it anymore, so they're saying ridiculous stuff.
They're probably saying nice things, like kids should be seen and loved.
Yes, exactly. It's like that kind of stuff.
Seen and shut them.
I can't wait to do that with, especially
That's
Alicia, because Alicia is just hysterical in general with the way she plays with language. So I'm excited to try that because you're right. There's been this massive shift. So it's one of those things.
What's sad about that, right?
What's that?
We're gonna run out of comics.
We are going to run. There's going to be
a dip in like 20 years where nobody's funny anymore because everybody was very sensitive and appreciated.
Gentle parented, yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, that would just be I would hate to be put in a position. Could you imagine? Because now your parents, like years later, are like, oh, I created this trauma for you, and all I was trying to do is love you, and like you have to, like, your brain has to switch off like a trauma patient, be like, oh, there's no way I did that. And like they just shut that part of their brain off. My
mother 100% came to one of my shows. And although she was laughing for most of it, afterwards she was like, what did I do to you? What is what is the trauma? I don't know, and you almost feel bad. And then you're like, I don't know, dude, how many 11-year-olds do you know on Nutrisystem? It's like, you gotta like.
Dude, oh my God. I said, remember Deal a Meal?
Yes. Oh, what kind of cards?
The cards with the colorful cards.
The colors.
Oh my God, sweating to the oldies. Oh man,
sweating to the oldies at 13 years old. That's humbling, dude. That's a humbling.
At one point,
experience.
I had a chart. We had a chart of like weight loss chart, and I would like earn money, like LA weight loss. What was there? Jenny Craig. What else was there?
It was just that was all I think.
Cabbage soup diet. You ever do the cabbage soup diet?
Oh yeah, but I did that more in my older age on my own. But
those were teenage years for me.
It's really funny. So my father's, he's really good on Atkins and stuff, and he used to be so proud of himself when he would drop 30 pounds by just eating fried cheese for 6 or 7 weeks. I'm like, dude, deep down inside, we know this isn't actually healthy. Like our family didn't know what health was. They knew what thinner was.
Yeah.
Like when my mom was pregnant with my brother and sister, she was, I don't know if I'm supposed to say it, she was on like speed, like actual, like they would not prescribe that now. She was like on speed to help her lose weight while she was pregnant. My brother's not okay now. We can talk about that in another podcast, but But yeah, like they didn't actually know what healthy was. They just knew what thinner was. So it's like,
Well, there was an era too where like cigarettes were like no big deal. You could smoke if you didn't have an ashtray in your house. Even if you didn't smoke, you had an ashtray in your house in case somebody came over
all
that
the
did
time.
smoke.
That's wild.
Like, it's crazy to think about how those norms. Because I remember like in Spain, I was studied in Spain like 2003, and there like even in the school, the people in the office were smoking cigarettes. And then like I remember being over there, and there was a shift that was because for years they were under a dictator named Franco, who basically put them. They couldn't do anything that was like entertaining. Everything kind of got shut down. And then when he died, I guess in the 80s, there was just this boom, defiance. Now we're going so that you could smoke anywhere. I remember in college, I was a cigarette smoker. I was smoking on the way to get on the plane. I was smoking in the thing walking to the plane. I was smoking, collecting my bags at the baggage claim. And then all of a sudden, I was over there, and there was a shift where they stopped smoking inside. And you could hear the people at desks, like behind the ticket counter, being like, 3 more hours till our next smoke break. Like that's all they could talk about because now all of a sudden they couldn't do what they had always been able to do. And it's amazing how when we the shift that happens and stuff. I mean, it's just a different world now. I mean, I went to Argentina. I talked about this a couple episodes ago, and I'm smoking cigarettes. They sold them in like these 10 packs for $1. Camel 10 packs, and I'd just be out there smoking cigarettes outside the school in the schoolyard, like. But even at O&J, there used to be a smoking section.
We had a smoking section.
My father-in-law told me that.
We created our own smoking section, though,
Yeah.
but there was also a real one. But right outside the band doors behind the bushes is where we would all smoke. I never smoked, though. I was not.
You were never. That's it. In high school, so I definitely started smoking when I was like 16. I smoked cigarettes. And then I got into baseball, and so they were dipping instead. It's like the Skoal. And I switched to this private school, like a hill school kind of thing. I went to the Wyoming Seminary. And so you weren't allowed to smoke, obviously, and I lived on campus. But some of the kids I found would you would go down, you'd have to walk like 3 blocks, and then there was this like convenience store, and then there was a parking lot with a bunch of bushes, and you could just sit on the other side of the bushes and smoke a cigarette on the 20-minute break you had before bedtime. And then, or you would sit in a room and dip. And I had all these bottles. When I graduated, my lower half of my desk drawer was filled with like Diet Coke bottles filled with spit. And it was like, I just remember like, man, like it smelled so bad.
So you were like a big hit with the ladies.
Oh my God, yeah. I was not, they were not coming in my dorm
drawer.
room. I felt so bad. I was like, one of them spilled over in the drawer. The hot sun's coming in. Yeah. But I think what you got to test boundaries. I think that's what I learned. I got to test boundaries. I'm glad I tried all of that stuff. And now I don't do any of that stuff. I haven't had a cigarette in, how old's my youngest? 8. So it's been 9 years since I've had a cigarette.
Damn.
I never thought I'd quit smoking. I thought I was going to smoke
It's been
forever.
like 9 hours for me, as you can tell.
Yeah.
I'm a casual, very casual.
Yeah,
smoker.
some people are. I couldn't, I just couldn't. I'm an all or nothing guy. I'm like either all in or not. That's how I live my life, all or nothing. But yeah, no, I don't know, it's crazy. So now you are living this. Do you feel like you're living one life, or do you feel like you're living 2 lives?
I don't have feelings anymore. I'm just I'm just going.
Yeah, I feel like you've got it as one continuous.
I just nonstopness. My job doesn't really have boundaries. Like I don't have hours of work. I just work all the time. So most of the time, I tell my clients I work 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., knowing that most of my shows are 8 p.m. or later, sometimes 7 p.m. And very rarely does somebody need me that late. But I don't really have it's not like I get to change shoes and I just go from one right to the other. But it's more, it's funny, they are more similar now than I realized. Like now that I'm letting myself loosen up a little bit outside of work, I'm loosening up more inside work. And I'm starting to find out, like one of my biggest fears was that people weren't going to hire me once they found out what I did. And right after I finished my class, Joel booked me on that all-male review.
That's right.
At Soul Joel's and
To host it
and asked me
not
to
be part of
and
it.
asked me to host it, not be a part of it, asked me to host it. And I reluctantly agreed. I was like, I'm not sure if I want this to be my first show ever. But anyway, I did the show, and about a week and a half later, I got an email from a woman who wanted to interview me to list her home. And we went back and forth a couple times and set up an appointment. And then she sent a message. She goes, your name sounds really familiar. And next thing I know, I get a Facebook message from her, and she's like, I know how I know you. And I was like, how? And she's like, I was at Shot of Men. You were the lady comic that was telling all the dick jokes.
Well,
and
I was getting
like,
a lap dance.
Holy cow. And I realize I'm like panicking now. Like, she's never going to hire me. This is like an almost $1 million home. But she was at the show. And I was like, well, if she was there, I'm in,
That's
you know?
right.
And then I was like, there are so many people out there that like don't look at this lifestyle as a bad thing, that really do enjoy it, that love comedy, that think it's fun. And so sometimes I think it actually helps my career a little bit. Other times, if it doesn't, I feel like maybe it helps to weed out the people that wouldn't have enjoyed me as much anyway, you know?
Yeah, I like punchlines and property lines. I like that.
Punchlines and property lines.
But you're right. And I think for me, I felt like I was living two separate lives for a while. Like that's why, Jay is not my government name, which usually people get thrown off.
Every
by
time I
that.
talk to people about you, they're like, "Oh, you know John Yoder? You
Yeah.
know Jeff?" I'm like, "I know Jay."
So
Yoder."
when I put, I don't know that I mentioned it on the air at one point, but like when I went to the first mic, I was nervous and I knew Yoder was such a common last name, so I just put my first initial. I just put J Yoder down on the list of Joel's, and I had my initials are JAY, Jonathan Allen Yoder, and so for the longest time, whenever we would move, which was a lot, I would try to make J happen. It was like trying to make Fetch happen in Mean Girls. I was trying to make
that's
J,
funny.
and it never happened. And then finally now it's happened. So it took a while, but now it's like I don't see myself when somebody calls me John, which is fine. It lets me know where they know me from. But if like that guy's gone. He's somewhere else.
I legitimately, you don't look like a John to me. You've always been Jay, and it's weird that that's actually your name.
That guy's gone. I had moments where I thought, oh, maybe I'm gonna change it, but I think it just sort of evolved. And like some people, still call me John. If you call me John, that's fine. I'm gonna answer to it. I've known it my whole life, but. That guy's gone. That guy's gone, and I'm grateful for it because that guy was confused. That guy didn't know who he was. So that part for me was so. I just put it down because I was like, oh, that'll be vague, and then it just kind of stuck at first, because you don't know what you're doing. I'm like, I'm just Tuesday night going to an open mic in an airplane hangar on a sand pit in the middle of a pandemic. And,
I swear, if you would have asked me where I thought I would be now, just after the class, I would have been like, probably just still at Joel's, taking another class. It's wild, the life that and I am so new and just beginning this process. But when I watch you, I'm like, it's not what everybody thinks it is. It's not just. It's not just for fun. it's a career. It's work.
It's a work. It's
You're a hustler.
Job. It's a job. It is.
It is.
I treat it as such. And now that the worlds are closer together, now that like the success I've had within the teacher world of comedy, with board teachers and the Teachers Off Duty podcast and some of those things that I do as well, it's really created a brand for myself now, and I like that. So it's like now the worlds are together. Like my kids now, we don't talk about it. Like I don't make a point to talk about it because I'm just too like when I'm at school, I'm a teacher, so I'm teaching. And sometimes kids will bring. We had a day the other day where all the freshmen were gone, and I have freshman heavy classes this year. So there were like 4 kids in the class, and somebody was like, "Oh, do you have a show tonight?" And I was like, "No, but I'm going to a mic." And we'll just talk about it casually. But now I'm not afraid. Before I was like, I didn't want anybody to know. That's why I was like, this is a disguise. I don't want anybody to know who I am. And now it's like both worlds are just together. So. That's cool. It took me a while to get there. I was not ready to make it all one world. I was living a double life, and that's how I felt my whole life. So I was very comfortable with the double life philosophy, and now I'm just like, I'm done. I'm exhausted with that.
I'm not going to be able to fully merge the two, mostly because one is not going to be able to sustain me like the other one is.
Well, and hey, you never. I will say with teaching isn't. If there was incentive, like I was just talking about this with the kids the other day, because like the kids will start policing each other when they have phones. Because I'm like, listen, I don't get paid. If the principal was like, hey, every time you catch a kid vaping or every time you catch a kid phone, you get like an incentive, then great, I would totally do it. But otherwise, I'm just
if that happened, I would just pass out vape pens in the parking lot to hook you up, bro.
Right?
I'm that kind of friend.
Just set them up and I'll knock them down. But it's just like it's so exhausting. I'm like, kids are gonna be kids. When do I teach? When do I teach? Because either I'm policing cell phones for 40 minutes and policing the bathroom for vape pens, or I'm teaching Spanish and Latin. We got to pick. I can't do both. You got to that's the problem. That's why I was starting a trend of 20 and out teachers, like servicemen. Not saying that, not to denigrate the men and women who have served this country, but I'm just saying, like, I like that philosophy of, if you put your time in for 20 years, it should be time to move on. Generationally, you're different. The times are different. Let's get a new batch of recruits in there.
I have to be honest, I don't know a whole lot of 20-plus year teachers that are still super enthusiastic and not just beaten down. And I mean, I have a lot of phenomenal teacher friends that have been in the business that long, but it's hard to keep up that kind of energy. And kids are different. I mean, without having children, I watch my friends, and you'll very rarely hear me complain to you or anybody I know that has children about being tired, even though I'm exhausted. I work 18 hours a day, easy, almost every day. And you'll very rarely hear me say how tired I am, because I take one look at you guys and I think having to parent for 10 minutes is like a year off my life. Like, I babysat somebody's children one time, and I was like, well, that took a year off. I'm done. I'm literally done. I'm never doing this again. So I don't know how you do it all day long. That was one of my 9 majors. Education was one of my 9 majors at Penn State. And I basically was like, I wanted real life experience. I asked one of my teachers, tell me what it's really like. And he's like, it's like just babysitting way too many people all at once. And I was like, okay, on to the next.
That's why I'm so grateful I made the switch to now being home in the mornings and not teaching in the beginning of the day. Because one, like, it helped me with stuff like my mom. My mom's in the middle of, like, always going to appointments, and she was by herself, and I'm the only kid. So a lot of that fell on me. And if I didn't take her to some of those appointments, I wouldn't know what's going on or be available. And even now, she's in a rehab for her shoulder, so I had to go get her laundry in the morning, go do it and bring it back to her. And it affords me the opportunity to be a human and a family member. And then my kids, I get them on the bus. They get the best of me because they're getting me in the morning. Because if they get me after, then I have no emotional currency left to, like, be a parent to them. So at least they get to see that part of me, which I'm grateful for, because it's just, you can't be everything to everybody. You only have so much in that's why, like, marriages, like, like me and my wife sometimes, like, it's like you have to. I've seen some relationships where they talk about, like, telling each other where they're at, like, energy or stamina level wise, because if my only time is interacting with her is when I'm at the end of my rope, then that's not fair to our relationship either. And so you gotta, like, I'm excited for her because right now she's in Pittsburgh. She left yesterday for a conference, so she does a lot with the teachers union. She's our secretary, and she's very much into helping other people. She chairs some committees that help members who have, like, some kind of life event that changes, and she's part of a committee that receives the applications and then helps them get that money that they might need to do whatever, fire or whatever happened. And so she's excited about that. But now she gets to go away at least 3 times a year. There's conferences, like one by the Jersey Shore. This one's in Pittsburgh. And she's going to another one in Oregon
so
in July.
much better than just the 30 minutes she usually gets at Target.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like,
this is my alone time.
Yeah, the time from, like, when she shuts her door until the girls get out of the car door. But, like, so, because everybody needs that. We all need an outlet. We all need something to fill our cups up so that we can go do what we need to do.
You guys also need a break. I mean, I cannot stress this enough as an observer of the parenting. And my husband and I were together, not married for 17, but together for 17 years. And we would say all the time, I have no idea how people do this with children. Like, we would have never lasted that long. There's no way. We had 2 dogs. And I mean, there were times where I was on the edge over dogs, but I watch you guys parent, and I think our parents were never that parenty. Yeah. Our parents were just gone. They went out with friends. I have so many pictures of parties that my parents were at when I was a child, just wasted, just having a blast. And there's something, I don't know if it was just guilt or if now everybody has to work twice as hard because things are so much more expensive or what. Parents do not get the break that they need. And as a non-parent, I am constantly advocating for my friends to get the freak out of their houses. Like,
I know.
Why are you guys, get a babysitter, get out of the house, go away for a weekend. If you want me to watch your kids, I will. They will not be the same. when you get back.
Obviously. Yeah.
But I have a nice crate and
I have a
great
nice
treats.
That I think it's important. My wife and I, we're grateful because my mom and her parents and her extended family, they'll take turns. So like, Amanda can come with me at night, or we'll just go out and have dinner one night and go get some sushi. And that's it. We need that. And then I think we also need our separate things. Like, I'm really excited that Amanda's going away for the weekend. Like, it's funny because I was taking things very personally today because, like, I do a lot around the house. I do all the laundry. I do all the dishes. I do all these things. And then we could not find the T-shirt today that was the Special Olympics T-shirt for my daughter. And so I put her in, like, a school shirt. And as I'm coming to pick you up today, I get a text from my wife, and it's like, hey, there was a call from the school. Alicia came down to the office and wants her shirt. And I'm just like, oh, my God. Now, like, everybody, other families know, the office knows. Like, everybody's going to think my wife goes away and somehow I become incompetent because she doesn't have this one T-shirt that she lost and cannot find. And now everybody's got an APB out for a tie-dye Special Olympics T-shirt. And I texted my wife. I'm like, I love how this T-shirt's going to make me look incompetent, like he can't handle. I'm like, dude, I'm doing everything right now.
It's amazing.
And I'm like, you go away. It's not like I think all dads probably feel like that. Like, they're like, oh, dads couldn't do it without the wives. And I'm like, hey, listen, like, I think for the most part that's great, but there's nothing more
You
depressing.
guys could, and it would be really fun to watch, like, long term.
I know, but I do. I love the opportunity to do it, and I love the opportunity to see, like, you know, how I do with that. And I'm not the best. But I do try very hard. And they got out to the bus. They had deodorant on. Their hair was combed. All of that. Teeth were brushed. All the important stuff was done. And it wasn't too bad. Actually, I forgot to drag the trash out. So Alicia actually brought it to the curb as the guys were pulling up. I was like, oh, my God, thank God. I forgot about that. And it was just like everything's coming together. It's a team effort. It's got to be a team. That's what you guys said about teaching. We're all sous chefs, like, in the kitchen together preparing this meal. It shouldn't be just me cooking and you waiting at the table. We need to be all together. And I think that's how life should be. We all need to get in this together and help each other out. That's what
As an old restaurant person, I appreciate your sous chef reference.
Yeah, the sous chef. That's what I'm talking about. Well, you know, I want to thank Meredith for coming on today. You know, just reminding us, hey, midlife, second quarter life, not a crisis, pivot, an intermission, if you will. We're rewriting the chapters. And if you like this episode, please follow, like, comment, share it out, do all the things, and, you know, share it with someone who, you know, maybe they've always wanted to do X, Y, or Z, and they just haven't quite done that yet. So please, you know, share it out. And you know what? We'll see you next time on Jaywalking Life Unfiltered.